Welcome to the Perspective Podcast, where we embrace open dialogue from different perspectives about entrepreneurship, relationships, and education.
And this open dialogue is needed, especially today, as we live in a Twitter finger society where everyone seems to care more about getting their point across than they are about hearing the other person's perspective.
If you're ready to grow your business, your relationships, and your personal development, stick with us here at the Perspective Podcast, because sometimes in life, to get to the next level, you just need a different perspective.
If I look like what I've been through, I'd be roadkill. Tell me off of the pavement, I'm reeking from the...
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Perspective Podcast. I'm C. Mouzon. Got T here with me. Say what's up, T.
What's going on, family?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back again. Excited for another week. We're really, honestly, these are like the highlights of our week, right? Like getting a chance to chat with y'all and share our perspective and talk about what's out there and give people breakthroughs and have conversation. Man, this is just like, it's a joy for us to do this. So for everybody that's listening, hopefully you're enjoying it too. Press that thumbs up, right? Like, subscribe to the channel, share the podcast with somebody. Because again, we're going to have another great conversation today. And again, another important topic. And coming off of the back of what we just talked about, right? Just something that was in that's important for us to kind of talk about. This has been in the headlines. This has been something on people's mind for a long time in our society. Another place of contention, another place of where we're split, where there's this side versus that side, and you're right and you're wrong. So
we've avoided this conversation for over a year.
And because of that, right? And because of that, we've avoided this conversation specifically, but we felt no better time, no better episode than season 4 to have the conversation on to vax or not to vax. I don't even, if
that is the question.
That is the question. Are you in, again, we've seen it, and we're hearing it, and we're in the midst of it at the time of recording this, that there are those in favor of vaccinations for this COVID virus strand, whatever you want to call it. There are people that are fully for the vaccination. Then there's the other group of people that are fully against. I'm sure there are people that fall in the middle of the one way or the other. But this is actually one of the more important conversations to have, specifically on our podcast, because it is about perspective. Again, whenever we get into these touchy subjects and the things that are very much so emotional for a lot of different parties, very similar to what we saw in the political races when 45 was getting out of office, right? In the same token of these emotional conversations or these topics that pull on the emotional triggers and the emotional traumas or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's important to have them, because this is where people do get clouded in the you're right or you're wrong, I'm right, this is the way to see it. You know, if you're not going this direction, you're going to hell type of thing. You have no care or concern for the people, right? All types of narratives that are out there. So we figured, let's talk about it. You'll get a chance to hear me and T's perspective. And, you know, we'll be curious to hear yours, but let's dive in, T. Like, where do we start with this vaccination conversation?
I'm gonna start somewhere probably people won't even I don't know if they'll consider, but I want to start off with an overall picture, like in my perspective. And I was really thinking about this a lot. And by the way, like we had no thought about having this conversation, and we were like kind of bouncing around ideas for the next episode, and it just naturally progressed to a conversation around this, because this is the conversation of the day, right? But I say all that to say, last year around October 2020, the conversation of the day was around an election. And then around like July, the conversation was around black and white and minority and non-minority. And then I remember some years back, the conversation was around the rich and the poor. And I remember there's a conversation, there has been something consistently, I hate saying always, around dividing people, dividing people up. And while we are going to have a conversation about vaccinations and what can come from it from a political, business, social level, I want to say, like, just taking a step back and watching all of the divides that are happening. And the funny part about it is I'm literally watching people go head to head over race. And then these same people go head to head over politics. And then they almost flip-flop and find themselves against the same people that they were going head to head with, whether it's vax or unvax. And now it's like you're standing next. I have a friend who's like I was like, they're always sending me like anti-vax stuff. And I was just like, and so I was like joking with them, and I was sending stuff back of like, man, because they were like, oh, the vaccinated people are crazy. They're trying to take over. They're trying to like it was all this crazy stuff. Like they're trying to force us into all this other stuff, right? And then I said, and they're like, they're radicals. And so then I like jokingly start sending them back anti-vax radical stuff, right? Like, because I'm that guy. Like, oh, here you go. You want like here goes some perspective for you. Right. And then literally, these are people that months ago they would never even want to be in the same sentence with, and they jokingly was like, yeah, like I understand those people where they come from. And I'm like, so now I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? And this is like the biggest issue that we have, the divide that we have, this element, I don't even want to say element, this like culture of, forget cancel culture, divided culture. Yeah. Like there is something about being like divided that is like enticing to people. It is like the most tribal thing ever that I've ever really experienced and seen in my life. From last year, this time, from George Floyd to the election to now COVID to then I guess we still in kind of COVID, COVID 1, now we on Delta COVID, and now just watching the divide, we have to do better. Before we can have a conversation, like we have to do better. Yeah. So with that said.
And on top of that, just know, and I'll let you get right back to it.
Yeah, you're fine.
Like a lot of that divide is not coming just from us, ladies and gentlemen. This is the point of this conversation also, on top of like all the topics that we talk about. Like it's in the agenda of the powers that be, media, entertainment, school,
whatever's trying to pull money from it.
That's it, right?
Yes.
Whoever that is, it's in their best interest to keep us divided.
Yes.
We have to be smarter than that. Like as a human race, as people, as Americans, right? Let's just say as Americans, right? Because we're talking about our country. We can go to a different country and there's probably still going to be divide, because again, this is what runs people in general. People in power understand that you get two people on different sides, right? You can create different narratives, you can move things. So this happens all over the world, but specifically here in our country, right? We have to be smarter to understand and ask ourselves the question, like, why is this happening? Where is this coming from? Why such a big deal? That's, I think, the big point.
Because because they're using, like, whoever is using fear to divide. Right. And every divide, it collapses. So they literally are having us, like a black person, looking at white people crazy. And then now amongst black people, like, I don't like to speak for black people and black, right? Or whatever we want to call ourselves, African American, all these other names, right? Whatever, right? And now then,
these days.
Huh?
I can't keep up these days.
I don't know. Like some people are like, oh, you're super call yourself black. Are you African American? Or like you're a Negro? I don't know. Sure. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm me, right? At this point, right? But but at the end of the day, like, so now within the black community, now you have a great divide within the black community about, like, hey, you saw what they did to the back in the days, you saw what they did to us. Now they're trying to hurt us. And then you have other people that are like, yo, get your together, right? Like, and so now there's another divide. Then there was already the economic divide within our community, which we know well about, right? We talk about that a lot. So now it's just like you're breaking, and it's just everything is breaking apart. To what? To what?
Yep. to pieces.
Right? Like to what? Like think about that. You didn't divide it on economic status. You didn't divide. Naturally, there's a divide by like political party. Then you divide by social. Then you divide now based on health. You divide politically. You divide like there's like to the point of where like no one trusts anyone anymore. Right. And that's where and it feels like to what strategic benefit is that? When you have the United States of America, which is a democratic country, which votes everybody independently, even though we can talk about how our voting system works, but let's just, independently vote and everybody's all which way, you only at that point don't have to have large numbers of people because you can even make people apathetic about voting. like you divide on whether I should even vote or not. To the point of where like there's like the United States of democracy is supposed to be the people kind of coming together and being like, this is what we want. But if nobody can agree on anything, then what happens?
That's it. Again, this is a divide.
Come on.
On a spiritual level, right? That is what the enemy does, right? Like that is what the enemy does on a spiritual level, is come to divide us, right? Like, yes. Right? Cause distraction, all of those things. So, right? Oftentimes it's a spiritual warfare. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, right? But at the end of the day, right, just understanding this place that we live and kind of what's happening. And I second that 1,000%, that there's all these divisions. The thing that actually brings us together are our commonalities, are the things that like we do agree on, that we do see. And that's where, this conversation's already going this direction, right? Like, but that's really where we need the biggest healing or the biggest kind of like awakening is like, and politically, whatever you're talking about. Yeah. We actually, as human beings, most of us actually want the same outcome. That's the thing. That's the commonality as Americans, as people that have children living in this society and parents and grow up and have all that. We actually do want the same things. Most people, right? Better quality of life, great future for our children, health, right? Good political system, right? Like governments that support us, businesses that we can support also, we can make money from, free enterprise, right? Like being able to live life the way we want to. Like people kind of want the same things. Yes. Then we have this next layer of media, politics, entertainment, that doesn't want the same. They want us to realize that we don't want the same things. So they're going to go down that path of dividing.
The direction we get there is different.
That's right.
And it's a zero, like there's this zero sum notion. And some people are like, how are you guys talking about vaccines and all this other stuff? We're going to bring it together. We're going to bring it around, I promise.
Because it all makes sense.
There's a zero sum. Like you said, like Chris, I mean, you and I may want the same thing, right? But if there's this overarching thought of there's only one of it and only one of us can get it, now I'm looking at you kind of sideways because my family needs it. And you're going to be like, well, bro, my family needs it. And I can see us like both looking at this like carrot. And we're both like, we stop looking at the carrot and start looking at each other. Like, I need to take you out and you need to take me out so somebody can grab the carrot. Right. And the problem is while we're taking each other out, somebody else just loops around and just grabs the damn carrot while we're sitting there fighting with each other.
Listen, I'll take it deeper. Like, I think no one grabs the carrot. I think
even worse, right?
I think the carrot is being dangled by the powers that be to get us to fight, and then they're like, I still got the carrot. And they just keep the carrot there. They just create a new carrot for us, right? Yes. What's the next thing that we want? What's the next thing that we don't agree on, but we want, right? Like, what's the next thing? And then they just keep segmenting, and then they just hold that carrot there and be like, see, it's still there. But that's your enemy. It's up here, but that's your enemy. It's like, no. There's
multiple carrots. There's actually 10 carrots, right? It's not zero sum. And so how does this correlate to the vaccine? We all want to go I want to say back. A lot of people want to go back. I want to go forward. We all want to go forward and live in an environment where we feel healthy, safe, protected, fresh. I can go work. I can make my money with as little as restrictions as possible, right? on my ability to live that life. That's all we want. Mask, unmasked, vaccinated, unvaccinated. We all want the same thing. The question now becomes, how do we get there? How do we get there? Some people believe the quickest route there, or the only route there, is vaccination. I say only as an absolute, because some people are that way. Mm-hmm. Then some other people are like, absolutely not. The way we get there is just go, right? Like, you know what I mean? Some people are like, this is fake. This is a hoax. This is them trying to control you. There's a bigger scheme. There's a bigger plan. And this is how they're trying to go. Then there's everybody in the middle that's trying to sort through it all, right? But at the end of the day, we all want to get there. And we like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but we have lived in such a divided society for so long that now when everybody needs to work together, we expect a light switch to come on and all of a sudden we're all going to agree and work together.
No idea how to do it.
Are we like, were we like kind of like wishful thinking with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
We just came off of two of the most ridiculous political campaigns in the entire history of political campaigns, probably on the planet ever, of democracy. And divided as divided can be in this country. And we assumed that we were going to just automatically come together, kumbaya, and sort through this. Some people are literally disagreeing because of because of who the other person is and what they're saying, and they just want to take an opposite side. Right? Like literally, like, oh, those look like Trump supporters. So you know what? Whatever they say, I'm going the other direction. Or those look like anti-Trump supporters, whatever, and Biden supporters or Clinton supporters or whatever. So I'm just going to go the other way. Even it's crazy. It's like we live in a society that like enjoys like being like, no, you're wrong. Like this is kind of how we started this podcast, right?
Exactly.
Like this podcast is birthed off of this notion of like, oh no, you're wrong. Like what? Like no, your perspective's wrong.
Yeah.
And this is literally what we're having right now with the vaccine. Mm-hmm. So people are probably asking like, all right, what do you guys at? Like, I am a supporter of the vaccine. I am a supporter of the vaccine because in my own personal studies and me looking at it, I believe it is one of the more efficient ways for us to get there. Is it the perfect way? No. I was not one of those gun-ho person sign me up for the first dose. It took me time to get to the place of what I saw as the benefits start to outweigh the risk, mm-hmm. right, of it. For me, it took me a long time. Like my wife was even pissed at me for a while, like, because it was like, really, bro? And I'm like, like, it needs to tilt all the way. And then I started thinking about, which is where we're going to get with this, man, I got some business I need to do outside the country. I got some business I need to do here. And I started thinking about like some of the things I need to get done that I'm like, is the value of those things going to outweigh what I consider the risk? So then it forced me to look at it more. Ultimately, the pendulum swung for me. And I said, you know what? There's too many benefits and future benefits if this goes a certain direction, and things that I want to do, even if it doesn't, that I'm going to make this decision. Okay, I'm good to go. Then it took me a minute. Like that was hard. Like I had the people waving their finger at me. So I'm not one of those people that's like, oh no, I was always hardcore. I had the finger wag. How you gonna do this to your family? How could you not care about them? How would you do your wife like that? How would you do your kids like that? How would you do our society like that? You say you good person. Like I had all of that. Like, so I just want people to be clear.
That's real.
Like none of that mattered to me.
Absolutely.
And I defended myself every single time when I felt necessary to defend myself, depending on the people that I respected, I had to, right? And it was only my decision once I weighed my cost and risk and benefits. And once I decided, then I said, okay, I'll go do this.
Yeah. And I appreciate that about your decision. for the record, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but no, I have not gotten the vaccine. And no, I don't feel like I will get the vaccine, right? But that being said, right, touch on a couple of things that you just kind of mentioned, T. That part of it where the finger wagging comes into play is the issue. Why
it's making people not get the vaccine.
It's also weird to think that, like, so a random person knows so much and thinks so highly of what they've read or heard that they would cast judgment on you for a choice that you make. So, like, this is when it really gets to that, like, and this is what we talked about kind of as we led into this podcast. We were talking about, like, when it gets to freedoms of choice, right? Freedoms that we have somebody has to draw the line. Someone has to actually stand up and be like, whoa. What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Right. What really are we talking about here? Because they don't put this type of pressure. They didn't put this type of pressure on us for a flu. They didn't put this type of pressure on us for any other thing. So when I start going down this path, right, and the reasons, and again, hopefully we can have some transparency on this, and maybe it's good to kind of ask a question, hear my side, hear your side on these things, because there's narratives out there for all the people that don't have vaccines, and there's a narrative for all the people that do, right? But obviously it's not that way. For me, I'm not a conspiracy guy on this side. I'm not like, I don't know what's in it. I don't know where they made it. I
don't know what's in the Cheetos I eat either.
Yeah, like, you don't know. I used to listen from restaurant guys. I used to talk about this all the time. If you actually knew what happened in that kitchen and in that dish room, you would never eat in a restaurant ever in your life.
Especially a buffet.
Especially a buffet, especially any like, people don't know the dish room inside of every kitchen is disgusting. And every single fork, knife, and spoon in that restaurant has been on that dish floor at least 2 times, at least.
And you better hope their dishwashing machine is up to code and everything else at every time. Otherwise, that's what you eat.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even go that path with people on, like, I don't know what I'm getting. Listen, you've had so much you didn't know. Let's just keep that where it is, right? It's like, that's it. So I'm not on that side. I'm not on that, oh, I don't know, or they rushed it, or what does the government try to do to us, and blah, 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 blah. I'm not on any of that stuff. I should have full control over what I put into my body.
Yeah.
And the two sides of this is, do you know the things that can actually heal, cure, fix, right? Keep your body running? Or do you choose to use medicine for those things?
Yeah.
Like, these are health conversations. These are not like the well-being of the population, like this, like, meaning like me transferring something to you. This is the matter of, like, I don't take Advil or Tylenol. Like, I don't take any medication. I've never taken a flu shot in my life. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what to do if I get sick. Like, I know my body. So for me, not for everyone, because I don't care about what other people do, right? Like, at this state, I'm like, do what you're going to do, because this is your perspective. But for me, I don't feel like I need that. I just don't feel like I need it. And then the narrative comes out of, like, well, you're putting other people in jeopardy. Am I? Like, because all transparency, my wife's vaccinated. We've lived in the same house the entire time. Mm-hmm. We've slept together. We've transferred fluids, right? Like,
a lot of fluids been going around there.
Right? Like, it's all good, right? We're still here. I'm not putting her at risk, right? She doesn't feel like I'm putting her at risk. She want to do that for herself. But for me, I'm not putting myself at risk. You kind of said this, right? I'm not out and partying and hanging and doing. I'm kind of in my place and doing my thing. So my question always comes back to, why are they pushing this so hard? Do they really care about us? Because here's the question, and this is where I go on the health side, and some of the people I know that don't vaccinate and all that stuff is, and I actually read this post. I wish I could quote the lady that I read it from, but it just makes so much sense. If the government chose to, instead of just say, we're creating something to put in so that, like, this kind of goes away, it's not as bad. You'll probably wind up taking it every year, kind of like flu shot, but that's one way. But American people, here's another way that you can do. Limit your smoking, limit your alcohol, limit fast food, limit this. If they gave us actual health things to pay attention to that actually would fix our body and make us less susceptible, because remember, COVID is about, right? Like if you already have high susceptibility for disease and all that type of stuff. So if they taught us exactly how to not be susceptible to it, and instead of making fast food essential during the pandemic, they made vegetables essential for the pandemic. So you couldn't go to a fast food place to make your body worse. If they chose to give us that direction, then people would have options and be like, okay, you could go this way, but if you choose not to change the way you eat and your diet and all those things, then you got to get this vaccine. But for people that are willing to go that side, then you don't need this, because technically, like, what are you saying we can do? You're saying that like me just being unvaxxed, like I could kill other people just by me talking closely to them, because it's hard. It's going to be hard to get away from all of that, right?
Well, so the government, like, and I hear the point, and I get where you're going. I think there also has to be a conversation for like the government's role, like the healthy, like the healthy eating, etc., like that type of deal. The government is in emergency response mode, right? And so emergency response requires like very rapid decisions to be made.
Sure.
Right? Like, and United States is like the number one country when it comes to emergency response from a medical or like or type of situation. We've had that's why like Katrina was so dramatic, because like that's not normally us, right? Like especially like on our home turf, like that's not like disaster relief, emergency, like we're like top of the line, right? And it's like from a military perspective, you have it. Sustainability of health is what you're talking about. Like the government like is not really in that business, right? Like that's just the way now we can argue whether they should be in the business. That's another conversation, right? But that's not their business. Their business is emergency response, which makes sense for a vaccine. Something else that and I can give an example of this. So a lot of people are like, they've never made us do this before. Well, that's not accurate. In 1809, it was the first ever United States mandate for vaccines for smallpox. Mm-hmm. So when the smallpox outbreak broke out, there was a mandate. You can look this up in 1809 for smallpox. Some Massachusetts actually upheld it in 1809 and 1905 to continue the mandate. So almost 100 years later, they were mandated to get smallpox vaccinated. So so when people say we've never done this before, like the country has. The question becomes like what for, right? And whenever you have emergency responses, history shows the United States has this, they will do this and they have the right to do this from a government standpoint. Where I fall with this is, do I think it should be a mandate? No, I don't think so. And I pause because I consider many things. I can understand how it becomes mandated. And this is the example I like to use. You have certain liberties, I have certain liberties within the United States, right? However, and I don't like to use however, but I will in this moment, when you come into my house, them liberties, are not free flowing. I'll use it that way, right? You have the right to freedom of speech. But I'm telling you right now, if you speak a certain kind of way in my house, or you do certain things in my house, while within the confines of the United States of America, you can have freedom to do this. But as the owner of my house, you got to get the hell out of my house, right? Like so it's like, oh, I don't have freedom of speech? No, you do, not in my house. Right. And so with me as a homeowner, right, if as a homeowner or a landlord or a tenant owner or whatever it is, right, whatever the law is, how it says that, I can literally dictate what goes on in that environment. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, some cities laws, some states laws, some of the federal laws allow this same freedom to say, if you're going to be here, you must do this. And whenever I think about that, I'm like, what if somebody tried to take my freedom from me within my home of doing what I wanted to do and how I wanted to rule my home? And when I think about it like that, I can understand how some governors, some mayors, some, etc. are like, hey, we want mandates here. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's the right move. I can understand, because if I feel like I have the freedom to act in the best interest of the people I'm responsible for, my family, then that means all of your freedoms and everything else is 0 to none if it comes against what my priority is, which is protecting mine, right? And so if I'm a governor and I have within the rule of law to do what I feel like is in best interest of the people I'm responsible for, I'm going to make that call, whether that's vaccinate, mask, whatever else. And so from that perspective, right or wrong, I understand that decision being made. Sure. Which the United States has done already before 200 years ago, however many 100 years ago. Yeah, 220 years ago is when that first happened in the United States.
Sure, if we're talking about states, right? Again, those things are fine. Federally, though, right? Like federally, for the government to come in, and back to what you were saying, right? The emergency response side, right? I understand when COVID hit, it was an emergency for the country, as was for the world, right? It shut the world down. But the vaccine has nothing. We're not an emergency anymore.
I think we are, though. Like I think that's where the miss is.
I think so, because again, when you look at who is telling us we're in an emergency? Personally, in your family and the people around, do you feel like we're in an emergency? Actually, like, do you feel like things are chaotic in the streets and in your families and or are we attacking something that people are telling us that this is an emergency?
I feel like this. So, like, I'm from California, and there's a lot of wildfires, right? And there's moments where you're like, oh, I think we got this covered. But in reality, it's still like, and you live in California too, so you know about this, right? Like it's still like there. Everything looks like it's fine. Like most of it looks like it's taken care of, but there's still bushes burning. There's still areas that are hot spots. Yeah. I still think while the raging flames that are cast across our TV may be gone, I still think it's hot. Fire is hot underneath it.
I agree.
Right. And we were talking about this, like, are the schools going to stay open? Right. Or business. Like I went to Chick-fil-A today for like a salad, and I was a very good decision because I usually go for my chicken sandwich, and I was like, I'm doing a salad today. Right. Like small baby steps.
That's it. And, choices.
Right. Little tweaks. Right. But I go for my salad, and I was like, man, I got to use the bathroom. Can I go in? And I was like, and they were like, sorry, it was October. Now it's just January.
Yeah. Like, so clarity, right? Like, COVID's real again.
Of course. Yes.
Hopefully people understand that. And yes, it's still the variable. It's still in our society. I think where my question is, and you kind of said it, like, are we thinking that the baseline of this, right?
Is this under control, or is this a quiet of the storm?
Right. And my mind also takes me to that place of, what is the consequence really? Like, if we fast forward this out, I'm a worst case scenario guy, right? That's how I can frame a lot of things and say, okay, worst case scenario, does this wipe out half of our country? Does it take out 150 million people? Like, is that, like, if worst case, the government didn't step in, there's no vaccination, or the way we are right now is where we're at, and then moving forward, no more people get vaccinated, no less, like right now where we're at. Worst case scenario, what is everyone scared of happening? You think we're gonna have a mass death? Like,
no, I don't think it's a mass death. I think it's a slow death. From my and when I say death, I don't mean I mean people literally dying, right? I do mean that, because we see that, right? We see the result of that. But I also think what happens is, like, in our economy is not stable. like the stock market is overinflated. Our housing market is overinflated. No one wants to talk about it, even Republicans. There's the deficit, the big D, which is it's trillions, right?
Like, stop you there, T, because you're going into my point. So is it easy to say that this is based on money?
I think money is a factor because if you couple money with actual well-being, you have a recipe for literal disaster.
Sure.
Right. And so and we know, like, look, we know money is the front runner. Nobody's going to deny that. Right. We agree. But when you couple that with real legitimate illness that puts more financial burden literally on everything else.
On who?
This is a slow. This is a so for example,
everything else.
Right. So like literally. So case in point, vaccines are free. They're not free. Right? They're actually not free. Right? There's a cost associated with it. Huh?
The government's picking up the tab.
The government's picking up the tab.
Yeah.
Right. So some COVID tests, most of them are still free. People going more and more into hospitals, right? What you're going to see is when the vaccine hits a critical point, they're going to say, if you're not vaccinated and you get it, we're not covering it. Watch and believe, right? Like, because it's a risk. You're in insurance. We're in insurance. We know, like, there's a risk factor that's going to turn that. It's just not politically correct right now to make that decision. Mm-hmm. And you're going to start seeing all these things continue to weigh down on what we do. Now, will we become more efficient will the entrepreneurs and people at the top figure it out? Absolutely, right? That's going to happen. But what's going to happen is you're going to create more and more of a drag. And then if we can't turn it enough, this is just my opinion, then it's going to be a slow, and then when it breaks, it will break, right? Then you're going to see the 2008 even more. And even before COVID, there was this conversation. Then you added COVID, which just put a bunch of money in to hold it up and support it. The super rich and elite took a bunch of money off the top. Like, thank you, Donald Trump, for taxes, and thank you, COVID, right, for cash. Like, that's just keeping it 100. Let's keep it in a buck.
Like, again, and this is where my brain goes to the why. Go for it.
That's so. Worst case scenario is not only that do we have a catastrophic death count for something that really could have been controlled. However we want to control it. Everybody lock themselves in the house and we give it a year, right? Like, that's one way to control it, right? Or we vaccinate and people can still get it, but you're not getting as sick, doesn't put a burden on. We can transition through some things a little bit slower, but still get through it. But at the end of the day, I think if that thing breaks, we have a problem. My thing is this, like, we need to figure out a way to collectively come together and get ahead of this.
But see, like, that's the thing, getting ahead of this, like, I think it's going so much either above or deeper than that. Like, what are we getting what are we getting ahead of?
I just said it. I literally just said it.
No, because
like a collapse.
That will happen regardless, right? With all the stuff we've talked about, T, COVID might have been a catalyst, but that will happen regardless if I get a vaccination or not, or if another 60%, 40%, whatever, you know what I mean? It's going to happen regardless, because here's, again, all those same points. People ain't going back to work. I don't care if they're vaccinated or not vaccinated. People don't want to go back, right? Okay. Business, the reason why Chick-fil-A is closed, because they don't have workers, right? Like COVID, non-COVID, vaccinated, non-vaccinated, right? They're not going to have workers. Right. And so.
But why though? Like, think about it. But why?
Because it's already happened. Because
I know, but
COVID was the
COVID.
Because that was the catalyst. But the vaccine is not the answer to fixing the COVID scare and why businesses shut down. It's what they're telling us. It's what they're saying is like, hey, if we get vaccinated, we'll be able to open back up. But really, because are the workers still going to want to go back to work? Are people still going to? So
your point is you're saying that people are so afraid that it's not going to matter. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that, yes, at this stage of where we are, the fear over, because again, back to the initial reason we're having this conversation, vax, anti-vax, right? Like perspective, why people think, and again, like we talked about, there's got to be a carrot. We're trying to get to the same place, but we aren't seeing the same information and thinking those things. So is the same, because the same place in this analogy, is it health? Is it business health? Like personal health, because we care about people? Is it business health? If it's a combination of the two, then we have to play for both sides. We have to say, okay, do we need the personal health side, this vaccine, to bring us to the place of having business health, economy health, businesses opening up, everything flourishing? Or if we chose to not go this vaccination route, does that mean that it's inherently worse for businesses? Does that mean it gets continually worse over time? That's that line that, again, the people that have been taking their vaccination or believe it, think that it'll all go up from here if this happens. The other side is this vaccine, there's so much more behind it than just the fact that our economy can get back.
Well, let me ask this then. Let me just ask from a totally different perspective. Let's say the vaccine doesn't help our economy or not. Just take that off the table.
Yeah.
The vaccine does keep, the vaccine does not prevent it doesn't absolutely prevent you getting COVID-19.
Correct.
Right? Particularly the Delta variant.
Right.
Now, the original, we can have some conversation about that, but the Delta variant, right? Because that's kind of where we are now. And just from a health perspective in our society, take money off the table. Is it better that we position our citizens to say, hey, if this virus comes on you, or you get in contact with it, you're in a better place or not so better place? What's your thoughts?
So that goes back to kind of what I said before. If the conversation is just about a vaccine, then you're just saying Western medicine. Yeah, this medicine will help. If the conversation is, hey, if this comes back around, here are the things you should be paying attention to in your health. Here are the changes that should be made on a daily basis.
Take that. No. You're talking.
No, because we're just talking health, right? We're just talking.
No. We're not just talking. No. We're not talking health. We're not. And I'm not talking complete health. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about right now. I have a solution to the specific problem that you have.
But what's my problem?
The problem is there's a virus. If you get this virus, right? If you get this virus, there's a potential that you can get really sick up to dying from this virus.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there are long-term things that you can do to try to put yourself in good health to be able to combat this virus. There's long-term things, right?
There's also short-term things, but
there's some things, right?
Yeah.
So now, with that being said, we have something right here that can increase your likelihood of not getting seriously sick. Period. Right? It shows that, like, you cannot get seriously sick. If nothing else, that's seriously sick. Right. If it happens, what is wrong with a country or anybody saying you have that option to vaccinate?
There's nothing wrong with the country telling people they have the option if they're giving them another option. That's what an option is.
See, I think that's it's almost
there
like
is another option.
No, I got it. Like, I think it's almost like, and I'll tell you what I hear, and you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I don't think you really care, so I don't trust this option that you're giving me.
1,000%, but that's just a huge part. That's a part of it.
So yes, then, okay, and that's what I hear.
But the other part also is, I know the other solution, right? It's kind of like what we talk about in money sometimes when people go all the way down and tell you 401k this way, right?
There's more than one way to skin a cat. We talk about that all the time. I get it. But you agree, based on the individual, right? There's different vehicles for different moments and different times.
Sure.
Right. Like everybody, you're not going to give the same plan to. Right. Now, I guess that's where, and this is where it's kind of like, I get it. like I understand it. Like I understand, like I said, I heard what you said. You're like, you don't. Now let me present this a different way. We still have there's all these other, like, we're a healthy country, right? Because there's a lot of other healthy countries, much healthier than us, where people are still dying from COVID, right?
Yeah,
doing all their things, and they're still dying from COVID, right? So that we're not morbidly obese and all this other stuff, and not a lot of health issues, and they were still dropping at the same rate, damn near, as United States,
It'll
right?
vary per country,
right? But a little bit, like, generally speaking, it was
generalizing, yeah,
right. So your country cares about your health and everything else, but there's a virus that comes along, and the country says, "Hey, we've put together a vaccine that could highly increase your chances of survival."
I get it.
So now, are you more likely to take the vaccine?
No, because again, anything, and I'm under the mindset, and
hold on, but why? Because you said before that it was because it doesn't seem like they have your best interest.
Do you take every meal that somebody gives you? Everybody that walks down the street, and every person that you know, every person in your neighborhood. Hey,
no.
I cooked you
think
a nice
about
meal
it.
because I know you're hungry.
But what I'm saying is, Chris, you just said that it was one of the main reasons that you didn't want to take it was because the people giving it does not seem to have any interest in your health.
That is absolutely correct. It's not the only reason, but one of the reasons.
Yeah. One of the reasons. Was that a high? Is that a big, like, if you had to, like, it could be one of the reasons. I have 1,000 reasons, but one of them is more important than others.
That factors into probably 30% of the reason.
Okay, so then it's irrelevant.
I mean, it's irrelevant because again, this is the same way that you said, right? Like when you made your decision, you were piling up the evidence on this side, so nothing weighs the most in it.
There were some things that weighed way more. That was like, nah, I gotta, like, thinking about this. Sure. And one of the big reasons is I don't I have things that I want to do outside this country.
Sure.
Right. And it's not the only reason, right? Like, obviously, but that was a major point. Like, I want to have some flexibility from a financial standpoint of doing some things that are going to, like, business opportunities that I have, that I can take care of my family. Right. And that's one of those things where I'm like, hey, I get it. Right. And then also once I started looking at more of the science and stuff, I said, and for full transparency, like, me and my family all got COVID. Yeah. Like, everybody did. And I wasn't in the hospital. Like, it was kind of like an annoying flu for a couple weeks or a week or so, right? And so I was one of the people that's like, I went through it, and the next time you get it, it's supposed to be a little bit easier. I didn't have any breathing problems. You know what I mean? Like, it was like a cold, just kind of sitting there and sitting on the couch like, oh, this sucks, right? But it wasn't the worst thing I ever had. But at the same time, I'm like, if I can even lessen that, right? Like, for me, if I can even lessen that, then, like, I'm like, cool. And I don't really, like, the same thing, like, with restrictions. I'm like, okay, well, this is something I can maneuver around with. And so that's why I'm always interested, and I respect totally everybody. I said it from the beginning, I respect everybody's, like, thoughts around this, because it is important. I think it helps more than it hurts, ultimately. And if that's the case, I want to go forward, right? And that's kind of like my, like, is it going to hurt?
The same thing too, like, in general, I would tell you the same thing too. My issue is that it has to be adopted at a certain level, like, to each his own, right? To come kind of bring this thing full circle again. Like, I chose my way, T chose his way, and I actually, to each his own. I can have a conversation with anyone and talk to anyone about any of this stuff. But when they step in to say, and the powers that be, the government, say that this side is messing it up for everyone, right? Like, you guys are wrong. Everyone else is on the right side. But you guys, however you're thinking about this, whether it's conspiracy, whether it's you don't want to put something in your body, whether you feel like you're healthy, whether you don't get it, whatever that side is, you're the problem. When that happens, There has to be something else controlling this. We don't get that strong about anything.
You know what? I respectfully disagree. I think when we don't know how to use our words properly, or we don't know how to influence people, we try to force them. and that's really,
all the information's out there, right? Like, what else can they tell us? Like, what else can you
but that's my point. I really believe, like, it really, like, and you're not the first person to say that. Like, that's why I was waiting to hear it. It's like, you're trying to tell me what I've already made a decision about, right? Like, you're trying to force me, and now you're trying to shame me into doing something, right? And this is why I said earlier, the tactic that's going about is actually hurting. It's actually turning people off to put their heels in the ground, like we did with our elections. Put their heels in the ground like we did over the George Floyd thing. Put their heels in the ground about a lot of different things, how we started this whole conversation. I think that they are not, when I say they, government, messaging, etc., from a lot of the big talking figureheads, and I'll say it that way because some people are better with their messaging, it's not influencing. And when you can't, like, influence somebody, then you just go to force, right? And
it's really
so
hard to influence people to inject things. It's really hard. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree. Like,
just,
you almost have to make it law, like they did in 1809, and it went on for 100 years plus. Like, it went on. Another case came up in 1905 that they honored the ruling of doing it. Mm-hmm. So unless you're, like, it's almost like this thing. If you're going to do it, you've already done it before. Make it a law and be done with it, or we have to come to some other tactics.
Or deal with this side to really stop with the fear and say, as a country, we'll be just fine. If we fix these other issues, if we fix these other economy issues and working issues and political issues and if we stop talking about this, I guarantee we'd make strides in the right direction. And then possibly not even could it be possible that enough of the country is vaccinated? And if we stop putting it on the news and we stop putting, because again,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You get more vaccinations by not talking about it.
I don't think, but I'm not trying to get more vaccinations. I'm saying, what if where we're at right now is enough? What if, to get the economy back, to get all the things rolling, what if the level of vaccinations that we're at right now as a country, at the levels of hospitals that are around, just take a poll for the nurses and the doctors and see what's happening out there, and for the level of where we're at, not what the news is telling us, but literally get feet on the ground and see, then we can start to figure out, can we not talk about this and talk about other issues to see if our society gets better? Or do we have to keep pounding this one because this is where the money is? We got to follow the money. This is what, right? We're property of the United States. If we have a bunch of people die, that cuts GDP. People don't invest in the country. There's a lot of reasons as to why losing population is not a good thing, right? But also you have to understand that, like, with Western medicine and the doctors, like, is this getting us to that desired carrot? Because what is that desired carrot? It's to have things back open and have life and be healthy and be good. And we haven't made that. There's no one that can say, hey, where we're at right now is good.
From my understanding is that there's more doctors that are saying we're not there than are. So, like, you're not getting, sorry to use a double negative there. The conversation, you're not getting people on the ground voicing their opinion from both sides, right? There's still more doctors that are saying, hey, we're not than we are. The trouble I have with that thought process is that's like low-key hope, and hope is not a strategy. Right?
Yeah, but again, this is no clear-cut path to a strategy either, because again, play it all the way out. We get mandatory vaccinated, 100% vaccinations.
Yep.
What's the next step in fixing all the rest of the issues after we?
Well, those are like, that's like like you got to prioritize your issues, right? It's kind of like you don't say
So how did this become issue number one?
Because millions of people died.
That was then. No, that was then.
This
so
is still not, here goes our difference.
Back to the new normal type of stuff, right?
Like this
people are saying, are we still in a pandemic?
Look, I still can't walk into a Chick-fil-A. I still can't walk into a Chick-fil-A. I still have to wear a mask.
From regulations from the government. That has
I know, but why did the regulations didn't come out of nowhere?
I'm not saying that they did. We know where they came from, T. Of course,
then we're still there.
Not necessarily. Says who though?
But
we knew it when it was happening, and then we're here.
So here goes my thing. There's more data that shows we're not there than there is data that shows we are there.
But see, you keep going back to there. I'm trying to get back to a great economy, back to health, back to all those. That's the thing.
You can't get to a great economy. Look, I think that's the conversation, Chris. Like,
you
cannot get to a great economy, right? You can't get to a great economy if people are still in fear of leaving. That has nothing to do with no. Like I'm talking like what is the economy? What is the economy? It is the marketplace for exchange of goods, right? That's what we're talking about. Right. And we're talking about getting people working, having jobs for them to work, whether they can work from home or go. Every job can't be work from home. I run the plumbing department. They can't work from home. Ain't nothing they can do about that, right? They gotta go into people's houses, right? They gotta go do things. And there has to be enough people out there and enough like industry happening to be able to create new jobs that people can go to, right? And also work.
Not that right now.
What I am saying is part of that is on hold because there's still this lingering like thing that's there. And
the vaccine is the thing that will not let it linger, that will open up the economy. That's what you believe.
So I'll say it this way. How about this? Not having the vaccine leaves more uncertainty than having the vaccine, and that's the perceived certainty, and that's your problem. That I am not here as a doctor to explicitly say, because nobody can say it, that a vaccine will do it. So we can't, if I can't say it will do it, you can't say it won't do it. So let's just talk business. So if that's the case, we're only talking about perceived value. Right. That's all we're talking about. There is more perceived value in the medical community that says if more people get vaccinated, then we have a better chance at opening up the economy than there are the medical professionals that say it's not. That's where I stand with it, because there's no way to explicitly say it. So we're not arguing about specifics here, and I want to make sure that everybody's listening, right? And this is how you have a good conversation, right, guys? Like just FYI, right? Like hopefully, right? It's perceived value. Right? That's what it is. Like when I sell your product, you're buying, if you ain't never had it before, on the perceived value of that product for you. Right now, the medical field at large is saying we need the vaccine to be able to do all these other things as efficiently and effectively as everybody wants it. And that's now how that messaging is coming across is causing people in their humanistic nature to feel trapped and backed against the wall. And if you make people feel trapped and backed against the wall, they will bite you.
Partly.
Right? They'll bite you or they'll buck.
Yeah. And I think the other side of that is there's still questions that haven't been answered. Back to messaging. And if people have, and again, not on some like, I don't know what's in it. I don't need to know what's in it. I don't.
Yeah.
I really don't care about that. My questions are on a deeper or higher level of like, are you saying that this will fix like what we're going through? Because again, it's tough for some people like myself where I'm not going through anything. I'm not going through anything personally for my family. There's no sick, like that's not. So I'm choosing to do this apparently for the greater good of everyone else to get back to where they need to be. So that means my belief system and the messaging that you've given me has to be so strong that I believe this is not for me. This is for everyone else. And I'm going to do this as a sacrifice to everyone else in the country so that we can get things back to normal. That's the messaging that you have to get to a person like me that says, I don't understand why I have to take this. I understand I want to get to the same carrot everybody wants to. I want people to be healthy. I want people, like, I want all the same things, but I don't understand why you have to have me take this and then I lose. I can't try. Why me? And that's where that group of us,
that's where
the question.
And that's where you're fall, like, it's unfortunate, but it's falling within a rock, within a hard place with this, because the perceived value is, if you have the vaccine, you are safer, right? Like it's safer, right, for you. Now, there's a lot of studies. Now, here goes the thing. There's supposed to be questions around the medicine and everything else. All medicines have questions around it, even your favorite Tylenol, right? Like your favorite aspirin, should I say, right? So we're not talking about that. The question becomes, how do we move forward? One way to move forward is everybody go take themselves in the house as much as possible. Don't go in social groups. Don't be in gatherings. Don't do anything like that. Keep to your bubble. Do your thing.
That's also making the assumption, because I could come out and say, well, what's the way forward? Can we just stop where we're at and open things back up and see how things play out?
Well, here goes the thing. We have cases of where people did that. Florida went out of control terribly. Alabama went out of control terribly.
People are still
Mississippi.
there, but people are still there, and businesses are still. And I know people that live in Florida. Like,
I know, we went to school in Florida.
Exactly.
Right?
On the scale of things, for what they tell us about Florida being open and being crazy, like.
Yeah, but you also have the other story of the hospitals are now overcrowded. They can't take people.
You have to get into the individual hospitals, because again,
I know, but that's my point. But think about it, Chris. Like, think about what you're saying right now. Like. If hospitals were overflowing when it first broke out,
right,
and then we went to some strict restrictions, even in Florida, they got scared. Mm-hmm. They got really scared, and they went really hard, right, on the restrictions. Mm-hmm. And then they went away from being that. They were like anti-vax as a state, generally speaking.
They were like, "Oh, this is garbage. We're just gonna keep doing what we're doing."
And then they open back up, and the hospitals are back overflowing again. Think about that. Now let's talk about New York. New York was the epicenter.
So you got to also know that, like, not every hospital down there are overflowing. That's not.
No. I didn't say every. I didn't say secret. I didn't say every. I said hospitals. So if I like hospitals, so that doesn't mean every. It's just hospitals.
It just means in general, there's more people.
Right, generally speaking, there's some that overflowed. There were some that weren't. Even when COVID broke out, every hospital didn't overflow. Right, we understand this, right? Like, so, but you have a cause and effect. Now that's a case study. Now you go to New York epicenter, where it started. Right, well, not where it started, where it blew up from us, like from a numbers perspective, fast. They locked down, super strict, got scared, came out of it casually, progressively, kind of started mandating some stuff. Hospitals are not doing the same thing again. So there is tangible evidence that just free willy open it up and see is not the route to go. That's not the route to go. Like, there's physical, literal evidence that you can see just from hospital numbers going like this. And every time it goes up, it's because it was like no mask, no nothing, no distance, is live life normal. That's the reason, one of the reasons why people are like flipping to like, we got to do something, right? Even if you say, hey, like, I have a friend, right? They're anti-vax right now. Like, I say right now because they keep like changing, right? But they're just like, just keep a mask on and keep your distance, and everybody like stop partying. Now, like, guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna have another argument, right? Yeah. It's gonna be like, remember, before there was a vaccine, there was like anti-mask fights, right? Like, so
because I think the, like, and to bring this fully home, I think that the issue really is we're losing sight of the carrot. Back to your initial analogy. Your initial analogy was perfect, T, of like them holding the carrot, and we're both looking at the carrot, and we're like, we're going to get there. And then they make us turn on ourselves to just look at ourselves, and we stop looking at what that carrot is. Like, what are we trying to get to?
But okay, now what if that, like, the question becomes, what if that carrot while yes, I agree, and we're on the same page, the question becomes, and I'll use the easy one: do we both? What if we both need to wear? We both need to do something exactly the same to get to that carrot. Like, even if we stop fighting with each other, we got to actually work together to get to the carrot, right? Maybe the carrot's high, and I'm like, hey, I can lift you up. Like, I'm strong, and you're light, so this works better, and we can work together. We're not working together as a country, whether it's masking together, distancing together, vaccinating together, not vaccinating together. We're not working together.
I don't think,
and that's where,
that's the thing. Like, when have we ever? When have we ever come together? I mean, 9/11, I guess, right? Like,
9/11 was like the one thing in my lifetime where the country was like, none of this other stuff matters.
Yeah, right. Like, we all like had
like Bush, send them over there. Right. Like, send the troops.
Right, exactly. Right. Like, we were probably all in accordance with that, but there were probably some people that weren't in accordance with that, right?
No, there were some. Like, there were some conspiracy theories, because there's a lot of things around it. Like, right. But for the most part, as a country, we were kept together. So, and I think this is kind of part of the conversation, right? It's, what's your perception of how to move forward? And then, how do we move forward when somebody else's perception can be completely opposite?
Right.
Or like me and Chris, we both want to get to a place where the economy is open, it's free flowing, everybody's working, things are going good, people are making money, people are healthy, overall their health, not just this one moment in time with a vaccine that can protect you from getting super sick, but not even protect you from it. Like, there's a lot of things that's there that we want. The question becomes, how can we operate today in accordance enough so that we can have that tomorrow?
Right. That's the question, man. I think we'll leave it off there, because we've gone.
Because I don't think there's an answer to that.
I don't think
you don't have an answer. I don't have an answer, right? I don't know.
That's the game. That's the game we're playing. And to bring this thing full circle, if we can just hear multiple perspectives, if we don't get bogged down into the who's right, who's wrong, why you're doing it this way, why you're doing, and really stay at a higher level of, what are we trying to accomplish? What's your thoughts on accomplishing it? What's your thoughts on accomplishing it? And eventually we do find middle ground, right? That's what we like. If it's just one person or one group has to come the other way, that's not middle ground.
That's not middle ground, no. Right? And that's what's happening. The vaccinated are trying to get everybody
on this
unvaccinated, vaccinated, and that's not how you do it.
It's not how you do it. So if there is, and that's why I go back
to the way that they're doing it.
I just don't think that is a plausible solution for anyone, to just be like, we got to get all of you guys to think this way about it, or to understand it like this. Like, there has to be like, well, we understand it this way, we understand it this way, but we both want to get there. So what are we willing to do on each of our sides to say, these are the steps necessary that we'll take to get to that goal? And that's what we don't have a solution for, and no one's having the conversation about.
And but what happens when that doesn't happen? People just they just put laws in place, like the smallpox.
We leave
and
it
they're
up
just going to say, okay, or we're just going to make your life miserable. You can't get on the airline. You can't come, you can't go into this. You can't do that. You can't do this. And it's like, okay, well, you don't have to be vaccinated. And we can even get into it. Like, shoot, Cam Newton was cut.
I saw that.
And the straw that broke the camel's back is what's reported is he decided to be unvaccinated, and the NFL has very strict rules for unvaccinated people when they go outside the bubble. And he went outside the bubble, and he was not reliable according to the team, and they cut him for a rookie.
Yeah, it's gonna get like you said.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying,
it's going to get real. It's going to get real, and that's why we need to have more conversations around it. Because, like you said, you put a certain group of people in a corner, like, they will buck. Like, it's not going to be like everyone just rolls over and does the things that other people think are important. Like, it's
correct.
Just,
that's not how life works.
Yeah, it's never going to be that way. So if they keep trying to make life harder for the it's going to come to a head. People aren't going to roll over. People will leave the country. People will start up, all types of revolts and things. Like, things will happen.
In Cali, there was anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers, like hate group, essentially, that put the addresses of all the LA County councilmen out there and told them if they vote a certain way that the anti-vaxxers and everybody were coming to kill them.
Real, man.
Like that's in the news. Like that's like legitimately in the news.
Again,
like,
go back to January 6th.
And it goes to other, right? Go back to January 6th.
Go back to
they stormed the Capitol.
Exactly, right? Like that was a preview. That was a preview of like what is up and coming.
Now we're not saying, I want to put this out. We're not saying the people that were out there and how they looked are the people that are going to do that. I just want to make sure for the algorithm, if nothing else, right? We talked about this when we recorded this. We're not saying that when you look at TV, you look at all the people out there. I'm not saying that those people that look like them people are going to be the ones out there. What we're saying is this can happen with any group of people that get bogged down in the United States of America, where they've been free, and now somebody's telling them you can't be free. People are going to flip out.
Yep.
It's almost like a spoiled child, though. Someone like a spoiled child that gets whatever they want. You're like, you can't have this right now. Put some restrictions on. They're like, ah! Like we are that country. Like I admit it. Mm-hmm. You probably admit it at some point in time. Like we're spoiled.
Yeah. Because and that's why people come here, because we do have a lot of freedoms and we have a lot of liberties and we're spoiled. So when they try to take those from us, it's not, or if we perceive it as taking it from us,
yes.
Yeah, right. Then we're not trying to play that game. Most people not trying to play that.
No.
But like I said, like we're living in a time where people will rise up, right? People will do what they're going to do. And I think we just have to have more conversations, ladies and gentlemen, as a way to wrap up this episode, which we knew would be a good one because we had different perspectives, and this is something that's big out there that a lot of us are all talking about, right? We're all having the conversation, probably in smaller pockets or shying away from the conversation, but we're hearing it definitely. But we need to have more of it. The thing that popped into my head is like, we need like a countrywide town hall where like we all jump on social media or like a chat text. Like we got to figure out something to like get the.
We got to find a middle ground.
Yes.
Like we got to find a middle ground, and then, well, I'll just say it. We have no vision for the country.
That's right.
We have nothing that we agree to aspire to.
That's right.
We're living literally off the tab of our forefathers of a vision that they had. Mm-hmm. That's really where we're at. We'd have no new vision for the country. We don't. And so there's nothing to inspire to.
That's right.
We're literally still talking about principles from the 1800s.
Right.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying, like what my boys say, Pastor Jamal Bryant, with all the big pastors to talk to him, he was like, man, I'm not trying to have a new thing. I'm just trying to put some spinners on it. Right. This is back in the day. What he's saying is like I'm just like, there needs to be a renewal of this vision. We can keep the same components.
Right.
And that's why where are we going? Like me and you talked about, we have a vision. Now how we think we're going to get there, you may have your way, which is saying we might be where we need to be. Like let's try, like maybe we need to like go outside. Let's see. And I may say, hey, hold on. Like we need to stay inside a little bit longer, but we're still trying to get there.
Right. That's right. Trying to get to the same spot, man. And
but this is bad. Like, I mean, I don't want to say bad. Like, I don't know. I can't trust our politicians to be visionaries anymore. And I know some people are going to hate it, but the one thing Obama won his campaign on, his first campaign, was, yes, we can't, a dream,
right? A
vision. If people want to hate it, Donald Trump had a vision, make America great again. People can associate with that. I don't agree with what a lot of rhetoric, but he kept giving people a vision, right? And then his negative vision and Hillary Clinton's negative vision helped his vision. And then his negative vision helped Biden's thing. But did they really have an original vision? Did they really inspire us? No.
I don't know that we've had politicians recently that have inspired any of us.
Right. I say in my lifetime, Barack's first one, because him being the first Black president, and like there was different components to like, oh my God, look at our country, look where we are. But that was more like symbolic, than anything. Like so, but we will like this will transition into a whole nother conversation.
It definitely will. But we appreciate everyone for listening to this one, and same thing. We want to hear your perspective.
Oh, right? I know we're going to get some perspective on this one.
Hopefully we do. Because again,
we hate the vaccinated Terell.
Right? Like at the end of the day, whatever your feelings are, try to keep them away from the personal attacks. You know what we do here on this side? We're talking about the issues, right? The solutions, what we can do to continue to move this thing forward. And yes, we are all needed. Vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, the whole nine. Everyone's needed to give their perspective as to what the solutions are. To get to that carrot, to where we want to be. Because I think we have a lot of commonalities there. We just are looking at each other too much, and that is not all of our doing. Remember, the media, politics, government, society, like they are there to point us against each other. So when you get down that rabbit hole, you got to remember, this is not even your doing. This is not even the people around. This is society. This is the powers that be, ladies and gentlemen. So that being said, stay awake, stay alert. We want to bring you more information and more things to keep you aware so that you can get above all these things. But at the end of the day, remember, this is just about your perspective, ladies and gentlemen. All right?
And what your visions are for your life. Chris has some things he want to do in his life, and he going to do it vax or unvax. I got some things I want to do in my life, vax or unvax. Like, that's really where you got to be at with this. Whatever route you think is going to get there. And if people don't want to come along, like, we're whatever. Like, you know, and when it really comes down to it. So I want to encourage everybody. You hear, I have my reasons. Chris has his reasons. Maybe I may change and be like, I'm mad I did it. And Chris may come around and be like, hey, I got vaccinated. Who knows? We don't know. But at the end of the day, do what you got to do. Do your own studies. You're going to have to study from somebody, right? The notion of, I can't trust what they say. Well, how do you trust what you did here? Right? Like, that's confirmation bias. So do your thing, do your research, live in your moment, and go from there.
That's right. Go make it happen. Go be great, guys. We'll talk to you soon. We're signing off this week. We'll see you guys next week on the Perspective Podcast.
Subscribe, like, do all those things. Yeah.
All that stuff. Like, subscribe, share, all of it.
Share, all that. Comment.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Perspective Podcast. We hope this conversation made you think a bit deeper, gain some insight, or even possibly gain a brand new perspective. If you did enjoy it, do us a favor, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Anchor, or anywhere else you stream. Leave a review to help more people experience these conversations and potentially change their perspective as well. And lastly, as always, T and I want you to connect with us. So follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can find us just by using our names. And there we get a chance to hear your perspective. Until next time, God bless.